So welcome all to this part of the session. And, I'm still with Radhika and Neil's performance, and it's going to take me some time to transition, but that's reality. We will have to come to this side. Martin's session is around another reality which we are facing in these times of divisive politics and nationalism of a certain kind, my nationalism versus yours, and mine is better than yours. We have this session, which is named What is the Role of Bias and Prejudice in Building the Nation? So a little bit about Dr. Martin McQueen. He is a Dalit human rights activist, and his lived experience of caste-based discrimination motivated him to stand up for the rights of the Dalits. And ever since, he has focused to achieve life free of untouchability and caste-based violence. He has been founding member of numerous organizations, including the Navsarjan Trust, Dalit Foundation, Dalit Shakti Kendra, and the Indian Institute of Dalit Studies. He has written many books for children focusing on equality. He's been bestowed upon many awards, and just to name a few, the US-based Robert F. Kennedy Center for Justice and Human Rights presented him its Human Rights Award in the year 2000. And in the same year, Human Rights Watch named him one of the 5 outstanding human rights defenders. Dr. McQueen has been constantly targeted personally and professionally, but that does not stop him from asking uncomfortable questions. Please welcome Dr. Martin McQueen. Over to you, Doctor.
Thank you, Altaf, for the introduction, and good evening to everyone. And thank you so much for inviting me on this platform. My pleasure. Well, Kabira, we heard Kabira, and he said, talked about the agochar, the invisible. I'm going to talk about something which is visible, which is gochar all the time. Well, the subject that we have today is partly dealing with the political science, the question of nation building, and partly with the behavioral science when we talk of the bias and the prejudices. But at the end of it, it touches the humans, the whole question of humanity. Well, the question will be, why are we talking about this today of nation building when India is going to be about 75 years in age of independent India? We have failed to check on the bias and the prejudices in 75 long years of independence, with all the development that we have, with all the civilization and education that we had in this country. Well, why are we talking about it? Because it continues to create trauma in life of millions of people today. Some of you may have read today's paper in an Express. It's an incident of 4th September was reported today. A three-year-old boy in a small village in Karnataka, his parents took him to the village temple to get the blessings of the Lord because it was his birthday. And the little child, unaware about the distinctions and prejudices that run this country, stepped into the temple, and that was all. Finally, on 11th September, the temple committee met and they declared a fine of 25,000 rupees on this family for defecating the god and the temple. The matter came today to the papers because this family, which is poor, like most of the families, was unable to pay the fine, and therefore they sought help of other community members to make a plea to the temple committee and the village in general to rethink about the fine. The police did not think that this was a serious crime, so I believe, they tried to haggle compromise, saying, let's forget about it. The government has filed a complaint against those 5 people. Well, here the question is that the prejudice, the source of it, is the very religion. Is the religion which sanctions and justifies that all are not equal. It doesn't speak only about inequality of the Dalits. It speaks about inequality of the women also. Yes. Women also may not enter the temples when they're in menstruation. So there are boards in Rajasthan temples saying, don't enter. You may cause harm to yourself. And we have become the problem of the Dalits, rather than it becoming the problem of the nation. It was 1994, and I was summoned in a small village in Gujarat to look after some case. What happened was, in the school, the children were playing with the scooter of the headmaster, who happened to be a Brahmin teacher. And somebody kicked the scooter and it roared to engine, frightened all the children, ran away, and one boy was caught. He was 11. And he belonged to the Valmiki community, which we know as scavengers. These considered to be the lowest within the Dalits also. So the teacher did not beat him up or did not scold him. He just said, go, get your parents here. I'm going to rusticate you from the school. Well, the child went crying to the head office of the municipality to find his father, who was cleaning toilets, and said, you have to come with me to the school. And there comes the father, and he apologizes to the teacher in whatever ways that is possible for him. But the teacher is unmoved, saying, I'm going to give you a red line certificate, a bad character certificate. And people get very scared in the villages about this so-called red line certificate. The father, he touched the feet of the teacher. He even removed his turban and put it in the feet of the teacher and said, look, he's only a child. You're like a parent to him. You can beat him up. You can teach him the ways of life, but please don't rusticate him. And finally, the teacher said, after 45 minutes of this apology, I will allow the child to be in the school on a condition that you write an apology letter for me. Well, the father thought it was simple, but he was not literate, so he cannot read and write. So finally, the teacher wrote an apology letter for himself with his own handwriting and asked the father to put his thumbprint. The father put a thumbprint and then he went back to his work, thinking the matter is over, resolved. It was 5 in the evening, the school got over. All the children came home. This child did not come home. It was 5:30, 6 o'clock. It was winter time, getting a little late in the evening, dark. His house was near the railway tracks. The child didn't come, and parents were worried. Finally, at about 7 in the evening, there was a big shout that a young boy is caught into two pieces on the railway tracks. And these parents also ran out of anxiety, and they found it was their own son, the child, who was cut into two pieces. They wept bitterly, and everybody said, "Don't weep. Let's get on with the thing. This is purely an accident." It was evening. The child didn't see the train coming. He tried to cross the line and, anyway, forget it. But because it's a medical legal case, the pieces were collected and taken to the hospital for a post-mortem examination. And when they removed his short pant, a letter fell off, which was written by the child in his own handwriting. It was a diary of the day. I still have a copy with me. He wrote what happened in the school. And the last paragraph was, "I would not have felt bad if the teacher had abused me. I would not have felt bad if the teacher had beaten me up. But I felt very bad the way he humiliated my father in public." And after my father was gone, when I entered the classroom, the teacher stopped me at the door and said, "Now I will see how you're going to be educated and make progress in life." And I was extremely shattered. And the last line of the letter is, "If I'm not going to be able to study and make progress in life, what is the meaning of living this life? I'm committing suicide." So in Hinduism, it says that we speak about moksha and the nirvana when we get old. And here a child of 11 is asking the question, what is the meaning of life? This incident really shook me up, but this was not all. I witnessed this kind of cases almost every day in my life for the last 42 years. I can't forget a village which I happened to be in 92, because Dalit women complain that, we don't get drinking water. Water was there, plenty, but because of discrimination, Dalit women are not getting it. Some women were going to the step well and getting water from there, with all the worms that you can see on the water. But I went to one village where I saw that government had constructed a tank, open tank of water. And there they had put a pipeline of 4-inch diameter. And the Dalit women who were always in short supply of the water would stand there for hours waiting for the water to come. And that the water is pouring out of the pipeline. How do it? So after some time, and they fill up the water straight from the pipeline. The rest of the water which is overflowing, falling in the tank, and people standing in the tank with the shoes on, with the dirt on. And after, when almost the water is filled up by the so-called upper caste, there's no more water there in the pipeline. So, but then the women can't take that water also. They're asked to wait. Then the people have gone home, the so-called upper caste, and they have to get their buffaloes and cows. So the buffaloes and cows will put their face into the tank and drink directly from the tank. And after they're done, they will say to the Dalit women, it's your turn now, please take the water. And this village is barely about 35 kilometers from the city of Ahmedabad. Well, sometimes you don't understand. And it took me many, many years to understand why. Why on both sides, people want to make sure that the prejudices continue. Even Dalits don't want to fight. And here there's a village where the women again were without water. Here they were not very poor because they all grow roses in little land that they have and bring them some money. But they used to go and fetch water to a private owner and who would say to the women, why don't you come and live with me, sleep with me, and then, okay, you can take water also. And that the owner told every single woman. And the women were humiliated, but what can they do? Finally, they talked to me and then we said, we called all the meeting of the band also were there and said, okay, we'll fight it. It will take some time, but the simple solution is, if we put 2 rupees and all, the problem will be solved temporarily. Well, I'll try to manage 4,000 rupees from somewhere, some donation, and there are 40 families, so people can contribute about 100 rupees each family. And the man told me that, look, we don't have money, so if you can manage all the money, fine, otherwise it's okay. I tried to reason with them, I tried to argue with them, look at the dignity of the women, but they said, no, we don't have money. Anyway, I gave up. I said, I'm not going to go back to the village. Well, I didn't go there for almost 10 years. Until one day the women sent a message, they had not forgotten me. So they said, please come. I went there. The women came, we sat on the same place they were sitting, but I could not recognize the place. It had changed. Behind my back, there was a huge temple standing there. And I asked the woman, when I came 10 years ago, this temple wasn't there, right? They said, yes, it was not there. We built it. Oh, really? How much did you spend? Well, we spent about 1.5 lakh to build the temple. So people had 1.5 lakh of rupees to build a temple for that God who thinks they are untouchable. But they didn't have 4,000 rupees to protect the honor of the women. But here the question is not money. The question is religion. The religion which is so powerful in my life that I don't have the freedom to question God and to question his prejudices that he has sanctioned. Well, my organization, which is called Navsarjan Trust, we did one of the largest census on the untouchability practices in Gujarat, the same state where I belong to. It's a model state in India, right? So we did a survey here. How much untouchability is there? This is Gandhi's Gujarat. Gandhi was born here. Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel was born here. Ambedkar frequently visited this place. Well, our study was 1,589 villages and 98,000 respondents. It's one of the largest study ever done in India. The study measures untouchability at both the levels, the horizontal and the vertical. The untouchability practice between the non-Dalits and the Dalits. So the non-Dalits practicing untouchability toward Dalits, and within the Dalits on the basis of subcaste. Is our first study of the kind. What have been the findings? Maybe I'll tell you only 3 or 4. In 90.1% villages, Dalits, though they are Hindus, they cannot enter temples. In 64% villages, Dalits are elected as chairman or chairperson and the members of the panchayat, but they cannot sit on the chair. The water glass is separate. Some continue sitting on the floor while other people sit on the chair. In 54% of government schools, in the midday meal, Dalit children are seated separately in a separate queue. So this is maybe 3 findings which I'm going to, it's a study which you can see on the internet. If you type it on the Google, understanding untouchability, you'll get the whole report. How does the government react to this? So there was a big debate. There was a huge storm in the assembly because Times of India carried this on the front page for 4 days continuously. And we had the most people's representative as the Chief Minister of Gujarat, Hindu Hriday Samrat. Well, the first was the government chose the Dalit MLAs who were from their party as a strategy, and they came to the press and said, one of the fellows said, I'm 50-year-old, I'm a Dalit, I'm from a village, and I've never seen untouchability in my life. Well, the press came back to me and said, what do you want to say? Because this is from the floor of the house, that there is no untouchability. So I said, I agree with the house. I admit my study is wrong. But now that the floor of the house has made a statement that there is no untouchability in Gujarat, please remove reservation from the political offices today. Let all the MLAs resign who are being elected from the scheduled caste reservation and let them fight on general seats. And next day, all the MLAs, one by one, Dalits said, oh, you know, there's some untouchability in that village, you know. But our problem is that we deny. It's something that is there every day and we deny it. And we are not alone. I met a professor, an African-American professor in the US in a workshop, and he was fighting at top of his voice vehemently and said, in America, there is nothing called race. It's only class, the poor and the rich. And everybody tried to reason with him, but he was so strong. I was quiet, and then at the end of it, I said, Professor, can I ask you one-line question? He said, yes. Given in America, if there's a white beggar, do you think he's begging because of his race or because of his class? And he says, well, I never thought about this. So here, well, Altaf made a list of awards which I have received and honors which I received, but I got the biggest one from the government. Anti-national. Your activities are detrimental to national interest. Well, when the Constituent Assembly of India was elected when the British were here in 1946. Their job was to frame the Indian Constitution. It could only function after 47 because of Pakistan separation and all that. But Dr. Ambedkar was the chairperson of the draft constitution was ready. That was his last speech which he gave in the Constituent Assembly. And then he says, these are the three pillars of our constitution: equality, fraternity, and liberty. But I want to say that equality and liberty are both meaningless unless we have fraternity in place. If people are not going to consider others as brothers and sisters, we can never build a nation. This is going to be a country, but it cannot become a nation. And he says, people criticize him, Ambedkar, that, he got the concept of fraternity, liberty, and equality from the French Revolution and the French Constitution. And he says, don't think I have borrowed these ideas from the French Constitution. These were given to me by my guru, the Buddha. And then he explains in the time of Buddha how the political system was there and what were the Buddha's sermons on the question of fraternity and the equality and the liberty. So today, we have this problem. Almost 16.5% of Indian population. Why most poor are the Dalits? Why most landless are the Dalits? Last year, in the middle of the COVID lockdown, a village which is only 7 kilometers away from Taj Mahal, these 7 wonders of the world, it's a majority Dalit village. A 5-year-old girl died. Her name is Sonia Kumari. A family of 11. They have electricity fixed in their house, but no electric power because 7,000 rupees worth of bill has not been paid. The father is suffering from tuberculosis. They have no money to buy medicines. Mother is the only member who is earning. For last 1 year, there's no school. When the school was there, the midday meal was given and children had at least 1 meal and they smuggled some food back to the home for the father and the mother. But now there is no school. And this girl died of hunger. The reporters say that for 4 days, the family did not have a single morsel of food in the family. Before 4 days, for a week, they survived on a glucose biscuit packet, a packet of 5 rupees. Each family member had a glass of water with salt and 1 biscuit. Well, the government has a policy that even if you don't have a ration card, which this family did not have, you will not be deprived of the ration. But this family didn't get the ration. And the hundreds of other families, there are about 1,938 families as per government record, out of 3,862, which does not have a ration card. Well, people say that Aadhaar card is mandatory. But the government officers ask for 300 rupees if you want an Aadhaar card, which we don't have money to eat. Well, the government has another scheme and they said they will leave 10,000 rupees with the sarpanch, that any family which is in trouble, immediate assistance can be given so there is nobody dying of hunger. And the sarpanch said, I have applied at least 20 times, but that money hasn't come from the government. But I'm sure other people had some food in the family in the village. Not enough. And this is not the only child who has died of hunger. Because of COVID, it is estimated that the number of poor, which was about 265 million in the country, has crossed over 400 million people. Look at the hunger index. All our neighbors, including Pakistan, Bangladesh, Myanmar, Sri Lanka, they're way ahead of us. We are topping a little higher in the hunger index. We have got money to buy the jet fighters and the guns and imagine the best of the arsenals. But our children can't have food. And just last month, we finished a pilot phase program in Gujarat. In case a third wave comes of the corona, then the children who are malnourished are going to be affected the most. Now in Gujarat, in a single year between 2019 and 20, the number of malnourished children have more than doubled. And this is the government figures. Now we said we didn't have money, so we raised some money and we said we'll give food to 5,000 children on pilot basis. But imagine where are the children who are in maximum number who are the malnourished. They came from a district called Anand, which houses one of the largest milk dairy of Asia. And the first child that you find, which is barely about 8 kilometers from this dairy. And there's thousands of children who are malnourished. Yeah. So we'll have to recheck our ideas on what is civilization, what is democracy, what is development, what's education. Well, we can go on. In Rajasthan, children were rusticated because Dalit children had the audacity to drink water from the pot which belonged to the teacher. And in Himachal Pradesh, on instruction of the government that the Prime Minister is going to speak to all the children about Pariksha Pe Charcha, all children must attend and look live the debate on the parliament. But in this village, the Dalit children were taken to a house which was meant for the buffaloes and cows, and they managed a TV there, separate from other children. Yes. In Tamil Nadu, a 14-year-old boy, it was raining and he couldn't stop his urge, so he defecated there, right there on the land. And the fellow came immediately, his Malik, and and he took the stick in his hand, and of course he abused him and then said, pick up your fecal matter in your hands and go back to your house. Take it to your house. A 14-year-old child in his SSC examination is going to appear. He probably had the experience of cupping his hand to drink water from which is thrown above in his palms. But he never had that experience of carrying his own fecal matter in his bare hand and carried. His father came running when he heard the news. But before the father could go, the child is walking, crying, with the fecal matter in his hand. And in Madhya Pradesh, 2 Valmiki children, they were bitten so badly by somebody because they were defecating in open that they died on the spot. And it is not that these 2 children were defecating in open because they don't have a toilet at home, but people are defecating in that village open, even those who had the toilets which are working, because there is no water there. But because these were the Dalit children. So we are coming back to the same question again. What is the education? What is nation? What is nation building? I mean, the children, if you see them, they have the tremendous energy. And, it's traumatic to see the children who have so much energy that we try to pull them down at every second. I have put a small film there, a 3.5-minute film. I'm going to give you a background that when recently, last year, the riots broke out in Delhi. I happened to be for that night in Delhi. I had just gone to my hotel and the TV was on and I saw the riots and I didn't sleep right up to morning. The roads were full of the brickbats and the blood stains, the raid. Well, I carried those images back to my villagers and children and showed them these photographs and said, See, this is what happened in our country. What do you think? Should this happen? No, this should not happen. Well, the dialogue gave birth to a program whereby children, they took the gunny bags and they started picking up the stones which were lying scattered in the village streets. And people said, hey, what are you doing? He says, no, we are taking up the stones. But why? If the stones are here, somebody will have the idea to break somebody's head, right? So we'll remove the stones. What are you going to do with it? Well, we are going to build a museum of Indian Constitution out of these stones. This happened in about 450 villages. I think we'll just watch this film, which I have shared with the team and see if they can play. It's called The Childishness, Bachpana.
ગામ આપણું અને તમે શું કર્યું સેના માટે શું બનાવવા શેનું ઘર
Well, so I thought that this would break some monotony. I keep on speaking all the time, and I have the habit of speaking very long. So I think last what I'm going to share with you is there are two small slides. I mean, there are 3 and 4 slides. Definitely, we'll look first at the, I think we have seen the photograph of the Constitution House, so that's okay, but I'll take you to the cards. And this is what we have been doing lately. We have prepared cards. It's called Goli Khayenge, Azad Rahenge. And every week, card is given to a child. There are 2 kinds of cards. They are for younger children, and therefore they are for the elderly children. The card gives them a message, a question to ask, and these cards are going to about 72,000 children every week in about 15 states. They're in Hindi, they're in Gujarati, they're in Bangla, they're in Odia, and now they're coming out in Marathi. It's one of the exercise on what we call the nation building. So that's the last 4 slides. And I think then I'll be there with the questions. So here you can see, this is the card for the elderly children who are above the age of 12 or grade 7. And the first question that you can see in Hindi, which is saying, why don't the teacher understand the importance of children sitting together and eating together to strengthen the Indian nation? And you will see this second card, which has a question. Every card has a question. And the second card has a question saying, if India and Pakistan can have a treaty on water. We did have a water treaty with Pakistan. And even after 3 wars, the treaty continues. The question is, why can't we have a treaty in the Indian villages where water is available without untouchability? You'll see the next slide. And yes, here it says that though there were serious differences between Gandhi and Ambedkar, they never hated each other. Yes, and this other card says that why in Indian judiciary, whether it is High Court or Supreme Court, there's hardly any representation of Dalit, tribal, OBC, and the women. Yeah. Next slide. So for the card of the elderly children, you can see that every date of that week, there is a history which is given in the card. And the history is on caste discrimination, on gender discrimination, on women leaders, on tribal rights, on communal bias, on religion, on freedom struggle, on social reforms, on education, on the agitations of the past, science, innovations, women political leaders, racial discrimination, hunger death, malnutrition, important judgments of the court, and general knowledge. So these topics are covered into this on the dates, what happened in the history of India and the world. And last slide is basically showing the cards which are meant for the younger children, which are below the age of 12 or the grade 7. And you can see that we have taken the alphabets and the small write-ups there. So you have Cho in Hindi, and it says Chalak Bane, let's be smart. Chatur Bane, let's be intelligent. Chanchal Rahe, let's be fragile, let's be lively. Chust Rahe, let's be fit. Charcha Kare, let's discuss. Chun Chun Ke Shabda Bole, let's select our words before we speak. And the question is, Hum chup kyon rahe? Why should we keep quiet? The next says, I am the student. My job is to think and to find an answer. To raise a question is also my task. To make a mistake also is my task, and to find an answer of the mistake is also my task. Why every child is not getting enough scholarship in the country? If students are going to be strong, nation is going to be strong. So these are the sample cards. Every week there's a card. So it started on 15th of August 21. and it will continue till 15th of August 22. Yeah, so about 52 cards. Okay, so these two things I just wanted to show it to all the audience today, that this is what we do. Apart from many other things, I'm sure the government has to see more to call us anti-national, no? Apart from these small cards. So we fight against atrocities. We fight against the whole practice of manual scavenging. We fight on the rape cases on women. About 7,000 women raped every year in India who are Dalits. On political leadership, on panchayats, on schools, lots of things. So I think with this, the question that remains on our head, in our hearts, where have we failed as human beings? Why can't we free ourselves from the clutches of the prejudices and bias? Thank you so much for inviting me today to speak to you. And I hope I have made some sense. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Dr. McEwen. I think you, at one point, you said that you have a habit of speaking a lot. And I would just pray that, you have the strength to speak a lot, because this voice needs to be heard. And I think you've also made us think of the very idea of development. We keep talking about being a developed nation or working towards being a developed nation, and at what cost? And the question, I think, what you're asking and what all of us should be asking is that, is it an inclusive nation building process? So with this, I keep the floor open for 12 more minutes. Comments, questions, please raise your hand.
Altaf, Richa has put a question in chat.
So Richa, can you ask the question? So Dr. Martin, what would you suggest can be done for changing mindsets at a society level?
Well, I think Buddha made it very simple. He said, let's start from ourselves. Because the religion has failed miserably, and so has our political system. What is left is only us.
Thank you. Karthik?
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, how are you managing to continue doing the work that you do ever since your funding from outside India has been stopped?
Very said, why quiet? I said, no, I'm working. And he said, no, but we have to give back. We have to fight. I said, yes, I'm fighting every moment. So village people took up the campaign and they started raising small donations. Somebody giving 10 rupees, 20 rupees. Every month we got about 70,000 rupees or so. Yeah. And with the COVID, it has gone down drastically because people are poor. I mean, on the contrary, we had to bring some money from a lot of other people to support about 1,000 zero-headed families. We supported them almost for 10 months. But then, we have a small center called Dalit Shakti Kendra where the young men and women come for vocational education, and they give fees. It's not free, but fees are about 6,000 rupees for 2 months. That includes lodging, boarding, and everything. But because we have no other cost, we clean our own toilets, we clean our own classrooms, we clean our own hostels. So we save a lot of money. So we had saved some money. So partly that is supporting the activists. So this is how we manage. You saw that house called the Constitution House, which we designed of a wooden kind. It's a small 6-inch model, but in the form of the house, you can understand the entire Indian Constitution. You know, the windows are the fundamental rights. The windows are the liberties. That became very popular, and we sold almost about 6,000 models. And that gave us some money. So we find some innovations here and there, and you know, money has never been a problem. I never thought about it. I think when we had lots of money, probably we were working less. When we don't have, you know, our work has doubled. So it's a notional kind of question of insecurity on the mind. Well, we have pulled on for 42 years. I'm sure we'll be able to pull more. Thank you. But there we are. Yeah.
One more question from Harish.
No, Martin, thank you for sharing. I was able to experience your pain and anguish as you shared this, and partly I felt shameful calling myself Indian. But amidst this, I also want to ask you, is there one story of your success, one village, one community, one set of people where you have been able to make difference? Would you like to share that as well?
Oh, sure. I mean, there are plenty. There are plenty of stories. And I tell people that because it is making change, that I continue working. If it was not making change, I would have stopped long back. But say, when I started going to the village way back in 1980, after my graduation, I witnessed that the people of so-called upper caste, they entered homes of Dalit women and do anything what they wanted to the women, and nobody could protest. The husbands, if they see the shoes of somebody, they would just turn back and go away. Horrible sights. Well, today that is not possible. The vocational school, which Anuradha knows well, she has been there a couple of times, and she was one of the person who helped us set it up. It started as a small kind of thing, but today there are 11,000 graduates. You know, they are no more laborers, they're no more scavengers. They're people who are entrepreneurs, they do small business. They help themselves and help others also. We started 3 schools with all the money I got from Kennedy Award. Of course, we had to close down the schools now because of no money, but about 2,500 of those children in the schools. But there are hundreds of stories. But, you know, how I explain to people is 40 years back when I started, we were walking 1 step forward and falling 4 steps backward. Today, we are falling only 3 steps backward. Yeah. I'm hoping to make it to 2, 1, and then 1, you know. So that is progress. But only if people had helped us, only if the government had looked at this thing positively, you know, that we are not raising these issues for the sake of it, you know, because these are what you see in India. I mean, definitely we are all ashamed. Yeah. In a country which is even think, you know, we are saying it has to be a Hindu Rashtra, Hindu majority. Now, Dalits are Hindus, is a Hindu majority, and they cannot enter Hindu temples. What could happen if you reduce yourself to a minority? Yeah. It doesn't appeal. Yeah. It's a slogan of very good, but no, you cannot change caste. Yeah. So yes, I think there are a lot of change, and I think a number of incidents of atrocities and violence is increasing partly because of the what you call visible impact that the Dalits are making in this country. Maybe small, but yes, yeah. So I have done books. I have done a diary which is called Diary of Change, where there are 52 stories of change. What these young men and women have been able to do go back to the village and do it. Yes, so there are, but definitely the realities which are painful dominate the mind as usual. Yeah, I hope I've been able to answer your question.
No, I was essentially looking for, is there one example from where we could learn? So saying that this particular village, the mindset of upper caste has been changed, and look at the kind of thing, and creating one role model like that, and then trying to create a multiplier effect. I was asking for that.
No.
Can I come here?
That example Martin? Of, yes, Anuradha.
I would like to say, answer just from my own experience, Harish, from the time I got in touch with Martin, which is 30 years back, the tremendous change I underwent is all because of what I learned from him. So I belonging to upper caste, Brahmin, whatever. And so it's possible. It's possible. And that's what I like what he's saying, that it has to start from us, from each one of us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we have another 3 minutes left. If there's any...
No, time is over. Time is over.
Is it?
Altaf, time is over.
7:11.
Yeah. 7:10, no? 7:10.
So Dr. McMahon, thank you very much. I think what you've ignited something within all of us.
Thank you.
It starts from here. It starts from self. All the biases and prejudices which we look outside, I think each one of us is holding something of a different kind. And the Brahminical order is within us. And that order, until that part is challenged, I think it will just remain a dream. So we can start with our own selves and see the change happen. So I think there's a lot more, Dr. McQueen, where you can add, and we will find ways for us to engage with you in the future.
Sure.
But for now, thank you very much.